Ah, ha, ha. It's nice to know that Entertainment Weekly here is giving some credit to performers that deserve their due. Sure, we have Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson on the cover here, but who is the real breakout star of Captain Marvel? Well, that would be Goose the cat. Ha ha ha. Oh, this kitten is so cute. I wonder if this makes me less of a dog person now. What is up, everybody? Random Man here, bringing you my review for Captain Marvel. Before I carry on with this review, I feel as if I should address the elephant in regards to the unnecessary and vitriolic controversy with this film, including the active defamation of it, the comments that Brie Larson has made in the past apparently affecting the success of this film, and just all other related topics with it. I have not been affected by all of that at all in terms of my anticipation with this film. I went in just as a fan of the MCU and just a fan of movies. I don't have that much knowledge on the comics anyway, and I feel disheartened to see the activity in trying to take down this movie before it came out and really just rooting for it to fail. I feel that any movie that comes out should be rooted to succeed no matter how it turns out in the end. So that is all I have to say in regards to that. On to the review. Based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name and serving as the 21st entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the plot of this superhero film takes place in 1995 as it follows Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson, who becomes Captain Marvel after Earth is caught up in a galactic conflict between two alien worlds. Going into this movie, I was quite looking forward to seeing it. In case you couldn't already tell by my Captain America shirt here, I am a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Still Team Cap all the way after all that has happened with the recent MCU films, but nevertheless, most of these movies I've either really enjoyed to loved, and seeing the zinger at the end of Avengers Infinity War last year with the post-credit scene teasing Captain Marvel's appearance in the later entries of the MCU. Yeah, that got me excited for sure, and there's a lot of other things to have been excited for in regards to Captain Marvel. For one thing, it is the first solo-led female superhero film in this franchise. It is also co-directed by a woman. This movie is directed by Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. This is the first for the MCU. And then this movie is also led by Oscar winner Brie Larson, personally one of my favorite actresses working in Hollywood today. And all of that coming together with this being an origin story set earlier in the MCU timeline, it all got me hooked. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have, of course, Brie Larson in the title role of Captain Marvel, or Carol Danvers, or as she's known on the Kree world, Veers. Now, as I said, she's one of my favorite actresses working in Hollywood today. In the past, she has been in some of my favorite movies of the decade so far, such as Short Term 12 and Room, the latter of which she did win the Academy Award for Best Actress. Both of these films are in themselves phenomenal and feature some fantastic performances from Brie Larson. So I didn't think it would be that much of a surprise to see her hold her own in this film. And leading Captain Marvel, I thought she did an especially strong job here. I will go into more of her performance later, and also in terms of how her character is written a bit into the review after I mention the performances. But I can say for now that she did quite an impressive job trying to display a different kind of portrayal of a superhero who's not just a woman, but also has quite a bit within her. Also strong in this film is Samuel L. Jackson as Agent Nick Fury. Not quite Director Fury yet, as again, this movie takes place earlier in the MCU timeline. And I love Samuel L. Jackson, especially as Nick Fury in the MCU. And this was quite an exciting thing to be able to see him have a more full-on lead role than the supporting roles that he has had in the past playing Fury. And here, bouncing off of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, they just have such kinetic chemistry with one another. And on his own, Samuel L. Jackson still retains a lot of the coolness that he has. Is that a word? Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, he is just so cool as Nick Fury. Also, seeing him as a younger version of Nick Fury also added on with the de-aging CGI. There are quite a few members of the supporting cast that I do want to give shout-outs to, such as Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, the leader of the Skrulls, which do come to Earth after the initial first moments of Captain Marvel. And I love Ben Mendelsohn as well, one of my favorite character actors working right now. And he really can do no wrong playing a villainous type of character, though there is more to him than just the makeup that he has on him playing the leader of the Skrulls here. I'll just say that he is quite superb in this film. We also have Digimon Hounsou as Korath, Lee Pace as Ronan the Accuser, both of them returning from the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. And then there's also Gemma Chan as Minerva. I loved her in Crazy Rich Asians. It's nice to see her here. These characters do have a little bit to do, but really the bigger players here are actors such as Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau. She is the best friend to Carol Danvers, and I thought she gave a standout performance as well once she does come into the picture here. Annette Bening plays a character who I can't talk too much about without giving spoilers, which, yeah, this is a non-spoiler review, so I'll keep that to a minimum, but I will say that I thought she did a very good job here. We have Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson. Again, just like Samuel L. Jackson being younger in this movie, having both eyes as well, we also see a younger version of Coulson in this movie. The de-aging CGI on both of them is terrific. Then there's also Jude Law as Yanrog, the superior to Brie Larson's Veers back on the Kree world, and he has a lot more to do here than I initially expected. I'll say for sure that he has more to do here than when he played Dumbledore in the most recent Fantastic Beasts film, and there's also a little more to his character, just like with Ben Mendelsohn's leader of the Skrulls. Finally, I also have to mention Akira Akbar as the daughter of Maria Rambeau's character. I liked her cute moments that she had here and there once her and her mother are introduced. Oh, and also Goose the Cat. How can I forget him or the multiple cat actors that do portray Goose? I am mostly a dog person, but I will call out a cute kitty if I ever do see one. But really, I think for the most part, everyone here does a solid job performance-wise, but of particular note has to go to Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, Lashana Lynch, and Ben Mendelsohn. The writing in this film is done by our two co-directors here, Anna Boden, Ryan Fleck, but also Geneva Robertson-Dwart. And as this movie does set itself up, it is very much something that thrusts you into the action right away. There is little leeway to the movie beginning right after the initial Marvel Studios logo does show up, which, by the way, does feature a really loving tribute to the dearly departed Stan Lee. This is the first MCU movie to have been released after his passing. So with all of that, Excelsior Stan, Excelsior. But yeah, when this movie does begin in its proper form, we do see Carol Danvers, or Veers as she's known as on the Kree world, living in that part of the universe and also struggling with her memories, as she has amnesia/memory loss, and she is trying to recollect herself and know where she is and how she fits into this world within her emotions and also just how she is as a character. Now, with regards to that, and I said I would bring back Brie Larson's performance as Carol Danvers here, when this movie does begin for the first portion or so, she is there in the story, but I wasn't necessarily connecting with her at first. I mean, this movie does start out a bit scattered, and I believe that was the intention on purpose, as like I've said, Danvers is struggling with memory loss here, and we do see how she is on the Kree world, but also how she is as a good soldier in outer space. With that being said, though, I did think that it did initially start out in a partially patchy manner because the movie didn't feel like it had its proper footing right off the bat. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or that I was bored immediately after the movie started. No. That is not the case. For me, this movie really began to take shape when Carol Danvers does come back down to earth, literally crashing into that blockbuster video that we all saw in that one trailer for this film, emphasizing how this movie does take place in the mid-1990s, which I'll get to in a bit, but also seeing her readjust to life on Earth with not really having a full handle on herself. This approach did remind me of other movies in the past that I have seen dealing with their protagonists having memory loss, such as the first installment in the Bourne franchise, The Bourne Identity, and then there's the obvious masterwork example from Christopher Nolan, Memento, where that movie has a character with such short-term memory loss, and the way it is structured, it makes us feel like we are there with him as well. This movie isn't just about a character trying to figure out her way in this world that she is unfamiliar with but was previously a part of, as it also has to do with how she is in her emotional state. This brings up more of the writing as well, as quite a bit throughout the movie, Carol Danvers is told to stop being so emotional, which I found a bit odd because for a character that is apparently really emotional, she doesn't emote that much, especially early on in the movie before she crashes back onto Earth. This, in a way, does remind me of some of the criticism that was put onto Ryan Gosling in his portrayal of Neil Armstrong in First Man. And with that movie and his character, there was a tragic angle to his character that did lead him to be very stoic, very straight-laced, and all around suppressed as well. So really, I don't get the criticism there. With Captain Marvel, in a way, I could see how people are really not getting that much connection to Captain Marvel as a character, but I think in the way that she grows throughout the movie and aiding also to Brie Larson's standout performance, it makes me feel like it is viewing this main character in a different way compared to all the other MCU protagonists we've seen. As the movie does grow, I did feel that the movie did have proper footing in progressing after we do see Veers go back to Earth. And then we are also exposed to the setting of the mid-1990s throughout the film with a bunch of references everywhere and all around callbacks to various stuff that is synonymous with that time. This reminded me of how Bumblebee approached its references to the 1980s, as that was where that movie took place, but I think Captain Marvel was less obnoxious than Bumblebee was in shoving all those references and other visual cues down our throats, as I thought that got a little annoying with Bumblebee, but here it is a lot more grounded in Captain Marvel in regards to its 1990s setting. Speaking of being grounded, that is a big pro I have with this movie, as this movie does feel traditional in the way it is set up and executed initially. But like I've said, the movie's progression does help it grow in creating not just an arc for Carol Danvers, but also being grounded in terms of how she expresses her view of heroism and how she does act in general. There's something to be taken away from how Danvers is, and I know this is going to be the obvious example to bring up here, but it did remind me of Wonder Woman from 2 years ago. Yes, also the first solo superhero outing led by a woman, this time in that respective series. But really, both of these movies do have similarities and differences to how they approach their story and all other modes of execution here. And I think that something that is worth championing with both of these movies is that they don't beat us over the head with their feminist angles. Yes, both of these movies are feminist films at their core, but they aren't overbearing in their tone. Getting into some of the technical merits of this film, as I've said, this movie does take place in 1995. It does look pretty authentic with the cars, the overall production design, all of that. And of course, we have all the references clumped together to emphasize that this movie does take place in that decade. From the music, that blockbuster video shown during that point of the story when Carol Danvers does crash land back to Earth, and all other minor details in there. Speaking of the music, the original score of this film is composed by Pinar Toprak, as there's a bit of an electro-techno kind of flair with some of the orchestral numbers that we are used to hearing in the other Avengers movies and other films in this series. I wish this movie actually emphasized a little bit more of that electro-techno feel here, but what we did get, I thought, did add a little bit of flavor with the audio department. Also, in the way it is used with the action sequences, the directing here all around by Bowden and Fleck, I thought both showed off their potential to direct other big budget movies like these, but it also showed that, yeah, this is the first time that these directors have tackled a big, high profile movie like Captain Marvel. The only film I have seen prior to this one directed by them is Mississippi Grind, starring Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn. A really good small little film. Definitely recommend you check that out. I think the pacing of this movie did make the movie chug along at a more than competent pace at about 2 hours, a little more than that. And it made me feel really into it. And going back to the action of the film, mainly the action sequences at the beginning of the film did feel pretty standard, but as the movie does go along here, it maintains that kind of feel, but it never goes to become a CGI fuckfest that a lot of other superhero movies are known for in the past. I mean, the third act of this movie does use quite a bit of CGI, but I think it is used more in moderation compared to other films in this genre. Speaking of CGI, I've already mentioned a bit the de-aging technology that was used for Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg to age down a little over 2 decades. And yeah, it is so amazing to see that be seamlessly integrated into the movie. Not once was I thinking to myself, they just aged him down quite a bit. No, these visual effects are some of the best de-aging visual effects I've ever seen in any movie, really. In terms of the rest of the CGI, it did look iffy at times during some moments. Like I've said, it is mostly used in moderation, but during some of the action sequences, when Captain Marvel does have this helmet on her, her face from her lips down to her chin did look kind of rubbery / plasticky. The humor, I don't have to mention how funny this movie is, as, you know, it's an MCU film and a lot of it does have the signature humor. Most of the humor does land, in my opinion, but what surprised me the most about this movie, with its tone and all-around flow with it, was its heart. This movie is one of the few MCU films that I felt quite a bit for, not necessarily with the characters, but with the interactions that they had with each other and the all-around theme and messages that this film has. All in all, I really enjoyed Captain Marvel. Like I've said, I was already pretty looking forward to it before seeing it, but it did surprise me in a couple of more ways than just one. And for all of those out there who are skeptical in seeing this film, I think that if you are already a fan of the MCU, this is pretty much what you would expect in terms of how it would run along here. Feeling very much like a Phase 1 film, which, yeah, we haven't seen a movie like that in years. Phase 1 ended years ago, but having a movie feel like this and it not following the entire traditional tropes that Marvel movies do have within them, I thought was kind of a bit refreshing. I mean, in recent years, there have been quite a bit of entries in this franchise that have been trying to step out of the box and also try to give some innovation with how they tell their stories and not just be superhero movies that we are all very much used to. That is one of the big reasons that I loved Black Panther from last year. Now the winner of 3 Academy Awards, and those wins that it got a couple of weeks ago were very much deserved for Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design. This movie was such a bona fide cultural phenomenon, and in itself, it's one of my new favorite MCU films. With Captain Marvel, I wouldn't say it's towards the very top of my favorites in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I will say that it is definitely a more than solid entry in this franchise that will deliver what you expect and then a little more, as it does have surprises, in my opinion, that did get me to really think fondly of this film in the end. I definitely recommend it. Psst, by the way, this is an MCU film, so mid and post-credit scenes do follow, and you know the drill with that. The mid-credit scene in particular definitely got me more pumped for Avengers Endgame. My final verdict for Captain Marvel is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Captain Marvel. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.